Okay, so the first problem that I'm going to work is this over here. This is the problem. I'll explain all of this. This is what you use these formulas right here if you were doing it by hand. Um, so I'm going to just jump right to straight to StatCrunch and talk to you about the problem. So all of this is the information. So your problem would read, the survey of a random sample. There's your first keyword right there. It tells you right there that you're dealing with a sample. Okay. So you're dealing with a sample of 1,000 smartphone owners. So we know that your sample size is 1,000. And we found that the mean daily time, this is the mean of the what? The mean of the sample. So we found that X bar, this is the mean of the sample, was 131.4. Okay. From previous studies, it is assumed that pay attention to the word, the population standard deviation. Okay. They're not explaining it. They're just saying, okay, from previous studies, it's assumed that this is sigma. The population standard deviation is 21.2. And continue reading, communicating on a smartphone includes text, email, social media. They're just being more specific right there. For a 95% confidence interval, this is how sure they want us to be, our confidence interval. That's our value of C. C is going to be our confidence interval. And I think it tells you all of that over here. For the level of C, C is the confidence interval. I'll talk to you about margin of error in just a minute. For a 95% confidence interval, what would the margin of error be? I'll explain margin of error in just a second. For the population mean, see, here's what they're asking us to find. Remember up here, I told you that they wanted us to predict something. Okay, well, they're telling us right there that's what they want us to predict. They want us to predict the population mean. Remember, this was the mean of the sample. This is the standard deviation of the population. And now they want us to pick or predict with 95% certainty what the population mean was going to be. Okay. So, but to use the StatCrunch, this is all the information that you need in order to use StatCrunch. Since we know sigma, since we know the population standard deviation, we're going to do a Z stat. Okay, that's what we're going to do. So we're going to go to StatCrunch and we're going to go to stats and we're going to go down here to Z stats and we're just dealing with one sample. That's all we're dealing with in this course. And the difference between these two right here, you might use data if you're working some of your homework, and that would simply mean that instead of giving us this information right here, instead of telling us all the stuff that they told us right here, they would have a list of data, and you would enter that list of data in StatCrunch over here somewhere, and then you would have to calculate this information, but this is provided for us. So on StatCrunch, all we have to do is go down here to, like I said, Z stats, because we know the population standard deviation. We're dealing with one sample and we're going to deal with a summary, not data. We don't have a list of numbers. Here we're dealing with the summary. So, and it should just ask us to write down everything that we have over here. Let me try to make this a little bit smaller so we can see both things at the same time. So, our sample mean, they gave us our sample mean. And this is why StatCrunch is a little bit easier, because it uses words to ask us for things. You'll see when we do the calculator, it uses symbols sometimes that are confusing. So the sample mean is 131.4. 21.4. The standard deviation, and we're talking, it doesn't say sample or population right there, but they assume that since you picked Z, then you know that that's the standard deviation of the population. So that number was 21.2, and our sample size is, I think it was 1,000, wasn't it? So that information, we got 131.4, we got 21.2, and we got a sample size of 1,000. There's all that information right there. We're doing a z-stat calculation because we know the standard deviation of the population. And these are the two different things that you can do under this tab. All right. So we're doing a confidence interval. This is chapter 6. This is chapter 7 and chapter 9, or maybe just be chapter 9. I can't remember. But anyway, this is coming up. We'll be doing that later. So we put in information. We picked confidence interval. Here's where you type in what the confidence interval that they're asking for. And here they say 95%. So we use the 95% right there. Store it in a data table, or we'll click both. I don't even know what the difference is. So anyway, we'll put compute. Oh, there's the difference. So they put the information over here. So the sample mean was this. This right here is your answer. These are your two answers, and I'll explain that to you when we go over here and look at this. So here's the two, this is the confidence interval. This is what we have the lower limit is what we're interested in, and where it says upper limit is what we're interested in. And it doesn't make a lot of sense until we go draw our picture, okay? So let me run back over here. In a minute, this is going to be all you have to do. You can just stop right here. You've answered the question, and you'll just go writing it down. But since this is the first time that I've explained it to you, that's why I'm still having to do some explanation. But pretty much using StatCrunch, that's all there was to it. But let me continue to explain it now. Okay, so over here, what we're going to do is we're going to draw a picture. Let me make this bigger. We're going to draw a picture pretty much like they did up here. Okay, we're going to draw a picture that matches this information. Okay, so we're going to draw a picture, and this picture is going to show our normal curve. Okay, a normal distribution curve. And I'm going to go ahead and make this be an x-axis, and this is for our sample. Okay, and we're going to put 131.4 right here, and we are looking for a 95%, and I'm just kind of guessing at where those go, but they want this area right here to be 0.95 in here. Okay, and so what they want to know is, all right, what is this x value and what is this x value for this sample of n equals 1,000. Now remember, for this sample, we don't have the standard deviation of this sample. We only have the standard deviation of the population. So that's why we have to use StatCrunch to help us find it. Now, we can also do it by hand, and I will get to that in just a second, and calculate this number right here. And you see you should recognize that as just finding the standard deviation for the sample. Okay, so that's what we'll do when we do it by hand. But what the StatCrunch did for us over here, let me find it. What StatCrunch did right here, these last two numbers, or this number right here and this number right here, they gave us those two numbers. So that's what goes right here. This is the lower bound, and this is the upper bound. And what it's saying is that, let me write those two numbers down. Let me shrink this a little bit so I can get both of them. This one was 130. I'm going to round this number right here. Oh, it won't stop. I'm going to round that to the nearest tenth. So that lower limit is going to be 130.1. So over here, I'm going to write 130.1. And then my upper bound over here is 132.7. So this is 132.7. And what this is saying is that this says that I am 95% sure that the mean of the population is between 130.1 and 137.7. That's what we just did. We just determined that. Okay. All right, I'm going to stop this video because it feels like it's been going forever. And then I will go back and I will give you some of these definitions and show you how you would do it by hand if you did do it by StatCrunch. But I'm going to stop it for right now.